the eras. I really liked 92, 93. It doesn't get talked about a lot.
1992. When you think of this year, you might remember Home Alone 2, Army of Darkness, Last of the Mohicans, Unforgiven, Mortal Kombat, or the early days of the World Wide Web. And along with 1991, it was also a year that was marked by a significant shift away from the 1980s, embracing alternative music genres such as grunge, hip-hop, and indie rock. Songs like Two Princes, and Jump Around were all the rage. But now, what was Phish doing?
It's of the song variety of sound.
It's a cross between rock, jazz, funk, Latin, Broadway, and bluegrass. Even though it goes through jazz and country and whatever in the course of one set, it's always the same four people playing with the same kind of crazy attitude. I mean, that's what holds it together.
By this point, the band had evolved from a goofy college party band to an experimental prog jam band to being laser-focused on technical proficiency, community centrism, and became a must-see touring act. It's crazy to think that by this point they had already been a band for 9 years, but in '92 they were really solidifying into the band we know today. Compared to what came before, the band was gaining more control over song execution as well as instrumental tone. And especially when it comes to Trey, as this year is when we start to see him skyrocket his way to the earth-shattering performances of 1994 and 1995. There was also a better integration of the band's off-stage sense of humor and banter in the live show experience, with this year being one of the most banter/audience interaction-filled years in their history, but in a way where it's more like professionals making friends with the audience, rather than the band is just hanging out with the audience, and also playing some dank songs.
Who's winning over there? Who's winning the pool game? That's what I like to hear.
They also stepped outside of their comfort zone by collaborating with a handful of different artists throughout the year, as well as took a step in a more mature, lyrical direction. More and more tapes were also being shared across the community with the use of tape trees through the internet, where fans would exchange blank tapes through postage and copy the shows that they had and pass them around. After releasing their new album, A Picture of Nectar, the band kicked things off in March with an ambitious 54-show tour over the course of 2.5 months, starting out in New Hampshire and working their way all over the country, including a very beloved run of shows in California. Following a scorching month of May for the band, they packed up and left for Europe for their first ever tour overseas. Most of their single-set shows acted as an opening act for the Violent Femmes, and when they took the stage at Stadtpark in Hamburg, Germany, Trey introduced them as...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are a special guest from the United States.
Oh, welcome. We're Phish from Vermont. Thank you. Dr. Show.
They also played in France, as well as London, and also a festival in Denmark with many other acts, notably David Byrne, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana. July and August saw more collaboration with the likes of bands that made up H.O.R.D.E, which we'll cover later on, as well as opening many shows for Carlos Santana. In the early fall, in between tours, the band went into the studio and recorded their much-beloved album, Rift, before going on one last run across the Northeast and Midwest, as well as Canada, and of course capping things off with a short New Year's Eve run of shows. You might think 1992 isn't a year worth diving into compared to 93 through 95, and 97, 98, and 99. But it offers a rich, all-encompassing experience of their early 90s sound. As opposed to the straight-to-the-point performance style of 90 and 91, they start to dip their toes back into experimenting outside of the song structure. They actually attempted this heavily in 1987. But now, they have the chops and the live show experience to be more sensible and guided in their improv ventures. Now, let's go back to winter to start things off. The first month of the tour saw something very special other than just the debut of a few new songs. The band decided to finally let the community in on the secret of the secret language they had been toying with since 1990. This language, made up of instrumental cues, would be followed by an abrupt gag in order to prank the audience. One more thing. Most of the footage in this documentary will not match the actual recordings of the music, as videotaped shows of the band from the 80s and 90s are few and far between among the hundreds of shows they actually played. Rather than leaving the documentary visually sparse, I decided it was kind of necessary to use the available footage and synchronize different clips with each moment of audio. Thus we'll explain the disclaimers, footage not from the same show.
But this is a very interesting sociological experiment to find out how quickly word can spread. We have a little secret language here. And what it is if I go like this anytime during the night on my guitar, it means I'm going to talk. This is basically just to draw your attention to the fact that something is about to be said. Now, one thing that might be said is this. Boom! Right, that's what you do. So it's supposed to, the Simpsons thing there. If you get most of the people that usually come see Phish or come see Phish a lot are going to get in on this language. It's kind of a secret thing. And the whole concept here is that someday we pull into some town, Providence or something, and some guy comes off the street who's never seen Phish before and walks in, and he's standing there watching this concert, and suddenly, in the middle of some big jam, hundreds of people all go boom simultaneously. Or the other thing that could happen, and this is what we were doing in Portsmouth, is if I go like this, everybody's supposed to suddenly fall down onto the ground like they died simultaneously. So that will leave the people who don't know what's going on standing up with all these people around them. So the other things that can happen are at which point you simultaneously sing a random note.
It's always been apparent that Trey and the band love to mess with people, especially those who are not in on the joke. A famous example would include the Cheesecake Chant, where right before the band was meant to go live on national television at their own New Millennium Festival in Big Cypress, Florida, Trey directed the crowd to shout the word "Cheesecake!" after they finished their song Heavy Things. This iconic moment can actually be traced back to their New Year's Eve '92 show at the Matthews Arena on Northeastern University's campus in Boston. Trey had drafted up a flyer with a mischievous set of instructions to be handed out to all the attendees as they walked into the venue.
That wasn't the secret language, that was the screw with the radio audience. Oh, these guys are gonna be listening on the radio and we should play a song. And everybody go. One clap instead of a cheer, or boo, you suck, or something like that. So we would hand out these, we'd bow, 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 boo, or oh man.
Now we're all participating. It's not just you standing there looking at a band. Now you're involved too. You're contributing something, which means that has stayed in the collective memory of Phish fans that were around at that period of time.
Secret Language was kind of an experiment with that feedback loop where they knew if they did certain things on one night that by the time they arrived at the campus club in Providence or, California, that the fans already knew the Secret Language, and that can only happen through the taping. They, like we, were amazed that would happen, that you'd go across the country and people would know the inside jokes from 2 weeks or 2 months before on the other side of the U.S.
Different every night and always changing, then when they come to the concert and something genuine happens, the fan is a part of a genuine event that's happening right at that moment. And that feeling, I don't think they ever shake it. When they come to a concert and something spur of the moment, incredible, exciting thing happens, and they're part of it because we're feeding off their energy, and they're sitting in we're all in one room doing this thing together, whatever it may be, and you can't shake that. That stays with you, and you're kind of hooked, to use a little Phish pun.
I only had one set of outputs on the soundboard, and it was just a dinky little soundboard. And then so people had to chain off each other. People were bringing in tape decks that they plug into the wall, Now and then somebody would try to patch in to the signal chain and unplug something in my soundboard and then plug, some adapter in there, which I couldn't have. I couldn't have people doing that. And, the band was definitely not against putting soundboard tapes out there, but it was unworkable.
Back then, when we were still allowing people to plug in, some guy came up to me before the show and he had his tape deck, and he went, "Hey, can I plug into your board tonight? Can I plug in?" And there was an XLR plug in the back of my lighting console that didn't have a use for the way I had things cabled. So I went, "Yeah, sure, dude, go ahead. Plug on in." And that lasted for about half of the first song. And I'm sure what he was hearing on his tape was probably something like, boop, beep, boop.
Delay, but it's flipped around backwards, so it comes towards you. Bump, junk. The leads are going. Bump, junk, bump, junk, bump, junk, bump, junk, bump, junk.
people say it's kind of a carnival atmosphere because we're not playing pop songs, and it's not something that would be accessible to the mainstream first-time listener necessarily. It's this different sort of feeling, and it's unique to this, experience, and so they keep coming back.
When I get home from work, what do I do? Try to kill you. When I get home from work, what do I do? I'm trying to kill you.
Why, oh 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 why, Hawaii, 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 let's go Honolulu, Waikiki. Do you want to come along with me? Hawaii, Hawaii,
Thinking consciously when you're up on stage and playing, it's never the right thing. It comes out sounding planned and contrived, and that's kind of our whole philosophy with improvisation every night and spontaneity.
Songs while they were touring, which is remarkable because most artists when they're touring they're just kind of in tour mode, and but it is remarkable how many new songs were written when they hardly gave themselves a break at all in that whole year, and yet all this not just new material but really, really good material that stood the test of time, and some of their greatest songs. They weren't one of these bands that kind of parked themselves in a barn somewhere for 4 months and just wrote music and then went out on tour and toured that music. They were creating this music while being a very active live band, kind of nonstop, just barnstorming around.
In February of '92, the band dropped their album, A Picture of Nectar, a reflection of the band's evolution during their 1989 through '91 period, marked by a deliberate shift away from the extended jams towards a smorgasbord of diverse North American musical styles, showcasing their instrumental prowess. Yet their unconventional touring strategy had already exposed audiences to nearly all the album's tracks by the end of the previous year. Rather than sticking to the traditional model of performing tracks fans had already heard on the radio or cassette players, they continued to break the mold and started playing all the songs that would be released on the next year's album, Rift, setting a forward-thinking precedent in live music.
The person in question on the album Rift is experiencing a rift in a relationship. He's consciously thinking of his situation, and then he starts to drift. There's a segue. He starts to drift off into sleep, and throughout the night he goes through different cycles of sleep.
For the album's lyrics, Tom Marshall, Trey's lifelong friend and co-lyricist, had his profound and clever poetic writing skills put to good use, with the band forming their first concept album, centered around a protagonist grappling with profound internal struggles amidst significant life changes.
One thing that's somewhat miraculous is that we get along as well as we do. The four of us, we've spent all of our time together. When we're off the road, we practice pretty much every day. For 9 years, we've been doing that, and we used to travel in a Plymouth Voyager. This tour is 23 gigs and 25 nights. From the beginning, the feeling has always been in the four of us that there's never been any doubt, there's never been any question that this is what we're going to do. It's just, it had to be.
We're totally screwing this up now. Jesus Christ. Did I mention everybody that my grandfather's here tonight? Where is he? I don't know where he is. Right there. Grandpa, very happy to have you here. I hope everybody give him a warm welcome. Grandpa, this doesn't always happen. We don't always mess up like this, really, man. I swear. Usually when we mess up, we pretend we didn't mess up. We pretend it was on purpose. I'm just going to take that right where I left off. God, I'm sorry. I don't remember the second verse. Somebody tell me the second? Okay, if the big balls come out, you guys are going to be controlling the music. Each ball corresponds to one band member, so just get ready for that. I really didn't mess up right there. I purposely stopped to tell you about the big balls. So here we go.
Say this, back then there were a lot of skeptics and a lot of people just thought they were weird. People didn't really know what to make of them. They were really eclectic. Their music spanned so many genres. It was very kind of inside joke, cryptic, and obviously the improvisation, the long improv was very attractive to some people, and a lot of people just thought it was boring. Back then, they were seen as this sort of weird little band from Vermont that nobody knew quite what, bucket to put them in. There's something so human and personal about their humor. Here's a band who are obviously incredibly talented musically, but don't take themselves too seriously. And that's a really attractive combination, I think, for a lot of people. It's like, hey, these guys are just everyday guys who happen to be really, really good at what they do.
Knowing that the tapes are going to be out there means that every night you've got to do something new. If something exciting happens, the easiest step would be, well, let's rest on our laurels and do the same thing again. But you can't do that because you know that everybody's going to know it's been done before. So you really want to keep moving forward, something different. Tonight, there's something that we did a couple nights ago that I really thought was cool, that was a new thing. And backstage, we were just talking about, should we do that again? And well, we better try to think of something else.
One of the most interesting and fun things the band used to do during this period would have been the fly famous Mockingbird narrations, where in order to give context for what was happening in the middle of a set-in-stone chapter in Trey's prog rock opera, The Man Who Stepped Into Yesterday, Trey would describe to the audience what our hero, Colonel Forbin, was doing in order to save the innocent peoples of the land of Gamehenge. Traditionally in the story, the old prophet on top of the mountain would offer to help Colonel Forbin by calling upon the famous Mockingbird in order for it to go off and retrieve the captured sacred book that contains all of the knowledge inherent in the universe. At some point along the way of performing this duo of songs, Trey started getting creative with the narrations and would conjure up different surreal adventures in order to transport the band and the audience to the fantastical world of Gamehenge. There are too many of these from this era to even count, but here are a couple of great examples.
Right now, some of you might not even know it, but every one of you is starting to split into two different entities. It's basically like a soul is coming out of your body. And as soon as it comes out of your body, one of them is starting to shrink. Finally, they're up against the stage, and we're all up against the stage now, and somehow we've got to get up the stage, and we start throwing huge ropes up on the stage, tiny little soul people, and they're crawling up the metal leg of the drum riser till the whole group is standing on top of this one cymbal right over there, and they look down and they see it below them, the target that they've all got to jump for, this huge, knotted, ugly mess of hair that they're going to dive into. And they're standing there, and one by one they dive off into the... Oh! Dive in! Oh! Dive in! Oh! They're in Phish's hair. They're climbing through Phish's hair. Oh my God, it hasn't been washed in weeks. They're sticking to the roots of the, Quickly, they're taking refuge down beneath his earlobe. We all start to go into Phish's ear. We're climbing into Phish's ear right now. Oh my God, it's dark in here. Oh, the smell is... it's incredible. Getting closer to Phish's brain. We're all getting closer to Phish's brain. Oh my God. Suddenly, as we see his brain in the distance, but there's a black void. And we're so excited to be part of Phish's brain that we run out into the void and oh! We're dropping through the void. Suddenly, boom, the parachutes come out. The whole crowd, we're floating down in the blackness, and we look down below us and we see Gamehenge. Colonel Forbin. He's climbing up the mountain. Colonel Forbin's climbing up the mountain, and he's trying to find the great knowledge of Linguist. He's trying to get the helping friend.
There's a lot. We have a lot of intricate lyrics in our song set. To someone who picks up the album and has never heard the band before might think it's sort of gobbledygook. And really, there's characters that run through a lot of different songs, and it takes a long time to unravel all the storylines to a lot of this stuff. And
so people get involved in the band and they realize that there's all these different levels of stories going on, there's characters and the different lands and stuff. So it becomes sort of an obsession, I think.
Everyone's flesh is starting to slowly feel it. Everyone's flesh is starting to turn into softer and softer gelatin and sinking. And suddenly I see everybody out in the crowd starting to slowly sink into a pile of goo on the floor, dripping off the thing into the basement, starting to sink through it's sinking through the cement in the basement, and it's going into the dirt. And we're all starting to sink. We've turned a little bit and we're sinking into the dirt. We're starting to get caught up into the groundwater below, and suddenly we find ourselves emptying out into the mighty Mississippi River. We're in the Mississippi River. We've joined with it, and we're going down, and suddenly we start to smell Cajun cooking, and all of a sudden we realize that we're going through New Orleans. There goes New Orleans, and we're going, and the next thing you know, that we empty out
to the Gulf of Mexico. A big school of fishes coming up and sticking their noses at us. It's getting darker, and all we can see is sort of a green haze. And we see red lava. And then the submarine. Red lava. Oh, a submarine goes by. A big submarine goes by. And we're sinking deeper and deeper as the submarine goes by, and the submarine starts to disappear into the surface, into the distance, and it's getting really dark now and cold. Off in the distance, we see the mouth of a cave. We're in the cave. We start to swim upwards in the cave, trying to see where it's going to take us. And as we get up higher and higher, suddenly we start to break through, and now this clump of water is floating on the surface of this cave, and it's this whole other place. And we step up onto the shore, and as we step up onto the shore, we all start to congeal back into human beings. And we start to see that the cave opens up into a whole different land, and there's green grass heading out in the distance, and over in the distance we see a rhombus go by. And we realize that we must be in Gamehenge.
Another innovation that came out of this year that would become a shining example of what this band was capable of would be their breakthrough in discovering melodic hose outside of the structure of the song they were improvising on. While anthemic statements and melodic exploration had long been integral to the band's ethos, in both compositional form and on the back end jam sections of songs such as Divided Sky, Harry Hood, The Curtain Width, and Reba, they were able to discover moments of pure inspiration that came out of thin air. Moments that were supercharged with solid, unshakable chord progressions and fierce melodic direction. A unique song without words being composed on the spot. This could very well be traced back to their version of Tweezer from Eureka, California on April 21st, 1992. This moment would go on to pave the way for jams such as The Went Gin, Camden Chalk Dust, Nassau Tweezer, and the Tahoe Tweezer.
I think this is Gamehenge.
I didn't know that I was that far gone. Ladies and gentlemen, the Yo-Yo Ma of vacuum cleaners, Henrietta.
Oh, I could tell you why the ocean's made of sand. I don't know what the ocean's made of anyway. I never thought before. And then I think some more. It may not be just a nothing. My head all full of stuffing. My heart all full of pain. pretend. Let Mary live with me. I take a serious. Boy, only had a break.
early summer of '92, the band, along with Blues Traveler, Widespread Panic, Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Aquarium Rescue Unit, as well as the Spin Doctors, decided to come together to leave their unique footprint on the live music scene. John Popper with Blues Traveler coined the term H.O.R.D.E, Horizons of Rock Developing Everywhere. Mike Gordon also had a good handful of suggestions, including Rock Donkey Dunkle and East Coast Rockasui, as well as the Clifford Ball, on which the name appeared on a plaque in an airport the band was in while trying to find a phone to call John Popper.
With over 6 hours of music each night, the H.O.R.D.E tour also includes an onstage jam between the Spin Doctors and Blues Traveler as a segue between their sets.
Their goal was to generate publicity and gain access to larger venues by combining their fan bases at each location. While Phish only appeared for 4 nights of the festival that year, as well as only a few nights for the festival for 1993, and then never again after that, it ended up being a huge success and demonstrated a viable market for all the group's music, as well as setting the stage for festivals such as Bonnaroo.
We all come from very similar pool of music, although it all sounds different. It's very much in free form and there's no rules about grabbing all kinds of influence, and very musical, which is something we all love.
1 or 2 people from each band came together and we met up in New York and just hashed this out.
We're very idealistic and tried to keep prices $10 and under.
We decided on that day that we were going to split all the money that we made evenly, and that is something that booking agents hate. They will not stand for that.
I think we probably did over 150 shows with the Aquarium Rescue Unit.
Just getting to be around Bruce on a daily basis was a real treat, and he just made the whole vibe better.
I said, I'm basically frightened. I'm basically frightened.
Did you ever know that you're my hero?
From the 17th of July through the end of August, the band spent most nights performing an opening set for Carlos Santana and his band, whom of which they learned a great deal from in terms of communicating effectively with a live audience and learning to let go and submit to the musical hose in certain cases. Santana would describe to the band, and I quote Trey, where the music is like water rushing through you, and as a musician, your function is really that of a hose. And well, his thing is that an audience is like a sea of flowers, you know, and you're watering the audience. But the concept of music going through you, that you're not actually creating it, the best thing you can do is to get out of the way.
And I want to just say to all of you and to the universe and to through of you, if any of you run into Carlos, that I will go through the rest of my life wanting to thank him from the depths of my soul for what that man did for all four of us.
Many Santana fans became lifelong followers of the band during this tour, as they delivered powerful performances that declared, "This is who we are, this is what we're capable of."
You know, playing in front of new people and having to really win people over who, a lot of whom have never heard your music at all. It's a very different dynamic than walking on stage to thousands of fans who know every little nook and cranny of your repertoire. Back then, it was like, who are these guys? You know what I mean? And they had to walk on stage, read the crowd. Okay, we're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and there's a bunch of guys, you know, wearing boots and, you know, and so we're gonna rock this place tonight. You know what I mean? And that's another thing that Trey was good at. Is like, it wasn't like we just do our show no matter what. It was like, who are we playing to? You know, we can take on a lot of different personalities. We're still Phish, but we can emphasize X, Y, or Z and win these guys over from the start, you know what I mean? And they were very good at that.
quirky Persian-sounding shredfest that is Brother debuted at the start of Fall Tour 1991, in which the band ambitiously hammered out 27 performances up until New Year's Eve. The lyrics display a classic example of an inside joke that only the band is in on. And then, following a clumsy, whimsical chromatic descent, Trey would burst out of the gate with a virtuosic solo, characterized by its utilization of a Middle Eastern scale. It was conceived by Trey ultimately just for the band to have a song with a quote-unquote sick jamming section. It's safe to say that they overachieved in what they were aiming for, with these two versions from May '92 knocking it right out of the park.
Did you hear that? That's called Brother, and that's an extremely new song dedicated to Paige's brother, who's standing in the room out there somewhere, and Mike's brother. And that was a song written to sort of describe their personalities. Sort of a combination of the two personalities.
Look at this, man. Look at how close we used to be.
Yeah.
Oh, I see videos from this period of time occasionally, and me and you are like so physically in sync. It's like one person.
Yeah.
And it makes me
Except
sad
I'm
that you're so far away.
A tad behind the beat sometimes.
I'm so happy that the sound is so good on stage that it's okay, but I kind of want to walk over next to you. You guys want to do one with words?
Yeah, let's do two.
Bootlegging tapes has been what made us what we are, who we am.